How did we get here? How did we get to a place where we're so divided as a country, where we're believing in two different realities? I think the news media is largely to blame, but it's only part of the equation. Network television had to provide content of a newsworthy nature with balanced, fairness in presentation of different viewpoints on those topical issues of the day. And in the 80s, it was removed. Congress has thought of trying to put it back in, but it hasn't passed again. And since then, of course, we had the splitting off of Fox News and MSNBC as these very different alternative perspectives on things. And maybe at first it started off as just the spin on the data, but eventually we're getting to the point now where it's just they use different data. And they cherry pick what they want to present to you so that they can prove their narrative. We as human beings, we're not idiots, but we're built this way. Our minds are built to be loyal to a particular ideology, to a particular narrative of how the world works. And it's just simpler. It's easier for us to digest it that way, to make meaning of the cumbersome amount of data coming in. And so we'd prefer to hold that narrative, to hold that perspective, that story on how things work, rather than reassess every time new data comes in. But it means that over time, like the telephone game, our echo chamber becomes more and more polarized, more and more unique and less accurate. And we've gotten to that point where we really have very different viewpoints on reality and how it works. People who really believe in trickle-down economics, something that back in the 80s, George H.W. Bush called voodoo economics, meaning it didn't work. It's crazy. It's total make-believe. And yet many people still think that cutting taxes is the way to grow the economy, that everyone gets wealthier when you cut taxes. Well, if you look at the numbers, of course, that's not true. Some people get wealthier, but the wealth disparity increases across the nation. Has the wealth been going up in general? You could say yes, but you have to adjust for inflation and a number of other factors. And you can see that people are less happy with wealth disparity they're less happy with wealth disparity even if the overall wealth has grown than they are with a lower standard of living and a better sense of equality. So on the left, of course, we've gotten ideologically astray into the point where fairness and equality are so intensely the religion of the day that we've attacked meritocracy as an evil. And there's a problem with that, of course, because if you attack meritocracy too intensely, you scare away the best laborers, the best minds of your time. And we haven't gotten to that point yet. We haven't, but there's a danger on the horizon, and I think the conservatives point that out. The real danger, though, in capitalism of meritocracy run amok is much darker, and we're seeing how capitalism has not just been harsh and intense, but it's really turned us into consumers. That consumer capitalism has sort of replaced the old culture. Consumerism has turned us into essentially little cogs in the wheel. We are consuming ad nauseum, as if that's a productive act, and it's not. It's just consumption. And it's pacifying. And unfortunately, we're doing it with our news too. The news, quote unquote, is no longer a public service. It's for profit. It's a for-profit game of who can produce more entertaining news. And the most entertaining news, of course, is the stuff that gets you emotionally riled up, the outrage news. And outrage sort of delivered like a drug. You see it on Tucker Carlson, you see it on MSNBC. People are just giving you the outrage trigger. Outrage doesn't help you think about things. It just makes you feel angry. And you can get addicted to that feeling like a drug while you stop thinking about reality rationally and just judge, judge, judge. See, the brain loves to shut off the stress of computing new data and just judge, fit it into the narrative, the preconceived narrative that it likes. And we've been doing that more and more and more up until the point that Donald Trump came to run for president. And I think he saw his chances as good because of this sort of altered reality that we were living in, this very polarized country where the news media could be undermined because it was already so flimsy, so divided, so relative. People could just say, oh, I have a different set of facts, and I don't believe your facts. And that was just okay, suddenly, you know? I remember in 2000, that seemed to be the Bush-Gore debate, where he's like, no, I'm not going to agree with your facts. I'm just going to cite my own and move on. And that seemed completely unacceptable to me, but hey, this is politics, not a formal debate class. So when we get to Trump, basically he's just speaking and storytelling a completely different narrative than the rest of the system. And people call the rest of the system the mainstream narrative, or the mainstream media producing that narrative. Well, it's not completely false, right? That the mainstream media does seem to tell a similar narrative. And part of that's because the Associated Press and a lot of the news has been sort of amalgamated into channels. But you have to admit that part of it's because there's only a certain amount of set actual data to draw from. How they interpret that data and story it, now that's up for some debate. And you can definitely say that a lot of the mainstream news media has been a little liberally biased, and definitely not looking at the conservative viewpoint with much interest or validity, which is why Fox News is so popular amongst the right. A lot of what they're producing is a very slanted narrative, and it again built on this outrage. If you just look at Trump's history as a businessman, most of it has been a skillful manipulator of the narrative. That's what he's so good at, is projecting this air of confidence that I'm great, that I'm a fantastic businessman, that I'm success. Join me and you too will be successful. And you can see how that's worked for him in many cases, how the confidence game has made him successful, and it's also led to gigantic bankruptcies that cost a lot of other companies and people their fortunes. The confidence game is risky, and Trump is a master at it. He's been doing it for decades. And so when he comes to the mic and we have a very split, contentious narrative already, he just starts speaking the tribal language of us versus them, real Americans versus fake Americans, us versus the immigrants, us versus the PC police, us versus the fake news, us versus name your enemy here. And why is he so good at spinning the narrative? If you look at everything he's done in his life, you look at all of his press conferences, all of his media appearances in his business life for decades before, you see a very consistent psychology, and that is of narcissism. Now, a lot of people think narcissism is just a being arrogant. It's just annoying. Well, for most of us, yeah, our narcissism comes up when we're a little insecure, and we cover that insecurity with arrogance or self-promotion. But there comes a point at which someone is not just a little narcissistic, but pathologically narcissistic. And what this means is that they've been wounded, that their self-esteem has been basically stabbed through the bottom of the bucket, and the bucket is leaking self-esteem constantly. Essentially, this means some form of self-hatred. And so there's a constant draining out, which means that the brain automatically reacts to this by trying to fill the bucket back up with more self-esteem. And so there's this constant pouring of, yeah, I'm great, I'm the best, and pushing down of other people in relative measure, because that's how the status-seeking mechanism works, is to try to push others down while you lift yourself up. And so Donald Trump, if you really look at him, he's got this mechanism going on, this sort of pathological narcissism that is all about his self-esteem. It's like a black hole that bends space and time around this need of self-importance, to be the best. Me, I'm the best. And you see it in his business life, in his early life, in the middle of his business, during the bankruptcies, how he spins reality. He has to see it his way. He has to see it in a way that favors him as smart and excellent and great in all senses. Otherwise, it's too painful. It feels like death. It feels like he's dying socially. And the brain, as you know, does not know the difference between the ego and the self. Like, status death is equivalent to the brain to actual death, because if you have a status death, you will lose your resources. You may get ostracized from your community. At the very least, you die in some way. With the first election in 2016, he had to declare it must have been rigged, because how could he have lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton? And then in this last election in 2020, he sees Biden as inferior in every way. And so how could he have possibly lost to Biden? It doesn't occur to his mind. His mind cannot even accept the possible narrative that he is so hated or so distrusted because he's dangerous, because some people see his pathology as a danger to the country, that his impulsive nature is dangerous to the country, that they would vote against him even if they didn't like Biden at all. He doesn't think about that for some reason, to acknowledge that, yeah, the country might have just overwhelmingly wanted me out of here, because that would be too painful to acknowledge. That would be like ego death. So he can't. So what he does from early on is instinctively, not with premeditation necessarily even, but just instinctively protects his ego. Says, no, can't be, it must be a fraud, it must be baloney. It must all have been made up by the system. Now, for massive voter fraud to have happened in this country, and for all these judges and politicians to just basically be covering it up, I mean, that's a lot of lying. It's a tremendous amount of graft that we'd have to imagine for that to be the actually true story. And when I look at that and I go, well, it's possible. I mean, it's possible that all of these claims of voter fraud, even though that, I think it was 48 out of 49 have been thrown out of court, it's possible that many of these cases have legitimacy to them. But the only case I've heard so far that could actually overturn the election is the Dominion voting machines idea. None of the other cases were big enough to overturn the election, even if they were true. I guess there was something that showed an error of like 26 votes or something being turned from Biden to Trump in Georgia. Some experts said that was human error of entry. I don't know enough about the machines to say this, of course, for sure or not, but it just seems to me that the probability of all these people and these voting machines and all of this being, and all the risk that these people would be taking by lying and covering things up, and I mean, incredible risk, right, to their livelihood, their careers, their freedom, all risking their necks to just tilt a little bit of the direction against Trump. I mean, that just seems very far-fetched to me when you really stack it up. And the more probable answer would be that Donald Trump, who's got a history of pathologically bending reality around his leaking self-esteem, has simply storied this. And since he's such a good storyteller, he's been spinning this since before the election happened. And people who want to believe him are believing him because that's how the brain is wired. We're not truth-telling organisms. We are tribal organisms at the most basic level. And again, when you get people to feel outrage, it drops us into our tribal brain, and we just go, yeah, yeah, and we don't think, we react. And that's what we're programmed to do, because when we're at war with somebody else, we want to dehumanize them and eliminate all gradations of nuance. We just want black and white thinking so that we can punish the enemy and win. That's tribalism. That's how we're programmed. And so the less nuance is brought to the narrative, the more emotional it is, the more black and white it is, the more we react rather than thinking. And we believe whatever the story of our tribe, of our leader, is bringing us. And for what I can say of my liberal and conservative friends, many of them do think in nuance. And despite the heightened emotional state of the country, are still thinking in nuanced fashion, considering and contemplating other things. This year has been, of course, a tremendous upsurge in emotional tribal thinking. Coronavirus, of course, has exacerbated our emotions and made us much more tribalistic. Just fear itself just tightens us up, and we think in black and white. And so, yeah, all the conspiracy theories going around, the fear, the distrust in the system, this is very tribal. It's very hardwiring aspect to our brains. And Trump's tribalism is a part of this. The way he speaks gets us to feel either we're totally with him or we're totally against him. A lot of people understood better than I did when Trump was first elected the kind of leader he was, that he really did have this sort of demagogue power to him. He was able to get people to follow him even when he was just lying through his teeth. And he lies a lot. He has this air of just dropping the BS and telling you the straight facts, but they're not straight facts. If you really study what he says in his tweets and in his speeches, he's always bending reality, and not just a little bit, not just your average, adding nuance. And it's like, no, it seems like he's really twisting it to benefit himself and his self-esteem constantly. And that is not a storyteller you want to trust. Like the man's policies if you want, but trust the man's storytelling, you should not. It's our politicians always spinning around. Yeah. But this is at a different level. Trump's a different animal of politics than your normal politician. He does not care if he's found in a bold-faced lie. He's willing to do it because he needs to. It's pathological. It's not necessarily always that well calculated. It's it's he's sick. He's sick, and it's hard for us to recognize that. A lot of us don't want to see that, because he's on our team. He's doing something for us, so we believe. It's very possible that he's not, that he's out for himself, pure and simple, that he would sell out America for profit, for business interests, for his personal ego. And I guess we'll find out. There are lawsuits that may threaten him or his family, and we'll see if he flees the country. Maybe he's going to sell secrets to Russia. I don't know. Hopefully not, but he's been an American his whole life. Hopefully he wouldn't do that. But at this point, from what I've seen of his history, I wouldn't put it past him. But we as a country, I think we need to recognize that Trump has been a dangerous spinner of reality. He's just the symptom, right? I mean, America birthed him. America created this pathological narcissist, capitalist. And many of us have the same traits, the same traumas that lead us to be instinctive black and white narcissistic characters. And we really want America to be the greatest country in the world. We want to believe that all the time. And sometimes that's true. And as far as economics and military might is concerned, it's definitely true. But in other ways of sort of morality and sanity and health, I think we've fallen far beneath the mark of top dog in the world. And I think we need to recognize that now, that we're not that healthy, not culturally. We've got a lot of beauty to our culture, but we've got a lot of dysfunction right now that we haven't dealt with for decades, maybe centuries. If we don't deal with our problems, it's just going to get worse. We're going to get more and more broken, more dysfunctional. And the Civil War brewing, it's been brewing for a while now, since before Trump. I was talking about Civil War back during Obama's first election, because people were so crazily hateful of Obama. We need to wake up on a lot of these issues and start thinking things through again, together, not in separate echo chambers. I mean, social media, of course, has exacerbated all of this division and helped us to ignore the other viewpoint. And people stop watching mainstream media because they've dubbed it all as fake news, even though the data is real. They may spin it in a liberal slant, but most of the data is factual. But there's like, no, it's fake news. It's totally fake. Well, then that gives them the foray to just go down some rabbit hole of unvetted salesmanship of false narratives that may or may not have any basis in reality, and believe whatever you want to believe. And that's frankly dangerous for democracy, because if you don't agree on the facts, you do not have a place to negotiate or a compromise in where we're going as a country. And the more democratic your system is, the more the people have to be educated enough to be part of that. Otherwise, we're blindly governing or stewarding our country with an emotional trigger. We have to work harder to be rational beings, to think these things through. Otherwise, it's dangerous. And I think that's what we're realizing today. We're at a dangerous precipice where our country is being torn apart from within, culturally. Trump was a catalyst in this, but it's been brewing for a while, and it all comes down to us, ultimately. We are not taking enough responsibility for our role in society as stewards of this democracy, as the most powerful, influential country in the world. We owe it to the world to step up our game, to understand more about how the world works, to think rationally. I mean, what I do love about QAnon and the conspiracy theories that have come up this year is that they're really questioning our epistemology. Like, how do we know stuff? Are you just believing like a sheep whatever you're told by the mainstream media, or are you actually critically thinking it through and going, I wonder what they're leaving out here. I wonder why they're spinning it in this direction. Is that just the most accurate version of the story, or is that what they want us to think? It's like, it's good to question things like this. And so a lot has been broken up, and you could credit Donald Trump as being a catalyst for our growth in many ways, because he's shaken the system, he's pounded at it, and we've seen how fragile it is and where. And so this is a great opportunity for us to step up, but we really need to do mind training. We need to be better thinkers. We need to learn what epistemology is, learn what critical thinking is. We need to get emotionally aware, self-aware, so that we can pause for long enough to not fall into these tribalism tracks of mind where we're not thinking, but we're just rationalizing our reality after the fact. This happens to us most of the time, and so emotional awareness would actually go further than anything else to get us to stability. After that, then critical thinking and epistemology become important. I'm working on some projects along these lines. Mind University is a program that I'm developing to help with people with mind training. And I'm going to be doing ongoing conversations, converging perspectives conversations with people on different expertise and viewpoints, and trying to show that there is a common ground, an underlying, under the surface of our political disagreements, there are values that we have in common that we just need to sort of get back to begin to build a vision for the future that actually is a common vision. This polarization is a problem, and I think we all see that and we feel that, but we can't just continue to be the problem. We can't continue to play the same game, to think at the same level that created all these problems. We have to rise higher. And I'm asking, begging us to try.